Hey everyone, this is Omar from Trinity Trading Partners. Today I wanted to talk about losers and a few from this week that we took losses on, and they actually ended up going into the green. So wanted to talk about these three trades in particular and talk about how maybe we could have improved the execution and also talk about in general how to sort of move on from a loser, um, and why two of these I could care less that they were losses, but the third one definitely had a mental impact on my trading the day it happened. So, and I think it actually had a mental impact on many people who took this trade too. Um, I'll just quickly go over. This is our trade log for the week. Just a screenshot here. So the trades I'm going to be talking about today are app 829 500 call, CBRL 919 65 call, and then cat 95 410 put. So you can see we took losses on this app minus 69%, ended up trading 53% in profit. CBRL, we took a small 23% loss, ended up paying 113%. Cat, we took a 43% loss, ended up paying 55%. Um, just in general, this week was very light in terms of a trade log. We usually have a lot more trades, but it was choppy and very difficult to find momentum across the board. You can just tell from the max gain here. We only have three trades that went over 100%. That's pretty unusual. We usually have 30 to 40% of our trades go 2x at least. All right, let's hop into this. So app, we took a trade on this on the 25th towards the close. So 15 minutes before the close, we took the 829 500 call. This was purely a speculation play, based on the fact that there was a lot of flow and a lot of chatter about app being included in the S&P 500. So it was worth taking sort of an overnight trade here to see if we could get a big gap up on app, especially because app is the kind of stock that can run 10-15% in a day on good news. So we took it towards close, 1.6. We exited right near the open, 0.5. Okay, so the reason we would exit a trade like this, sort of right at the open, literally within the first minute, is because this was a purely speculative news play, right? So taking the loss here, kind of all part of the plan. We either gapped up or it didn't work. So that's fine. That is an easy loss to move on from, especially because it was more speculative. However, what ended up happening was, from a technical perspective, here I've got my levels drawn out here. We recovered this 450 area almost within the first 10 minutes here, and we actually had some decently strong momentum. And this is off the backs of a good technical move earlier in the week and late last week. So upon reflection and reviewing this trade, we actually probably could have taken a more technical trade here through 450. Targeting this 463 area first, and then eventually, taking profit into here. If we were still holding, with the idea that we might test 488 later in the week, which ended up happening the next two sessions. So upon reflection, we could have actually re-entered a trade here and made a profit, but once you take a loss on a ticker, it's really, really difficult to trade it again, because you're mentally like, I took a loss on this ticker again. If I take another loss on this ticker, I'm going to be livid, right? But what you have to do in these moments is just forget that you took that loss, even though it was literally 10 minutes ago, and just play the technical chart, right? And so that was a miss. I think on our end, we could certainly have entered a new trade here, maybe go a little bit closer to the money, like around 480 call or something like that. Okay, so that's app. Not going to lose any sleep off this trade. Definitely did not impact my mentality at all whatsoever, because it was such a speculative sort of trade. Next one, another more speculative trade. Cracker Barrel. I never first of all, didn't even know this was a publicly traded stock. Second, um, I would never think to be trading the CBRL, but there was news that Trump wanted Creator Cracker Barrel to keep the old logo. You can't make this news up, even if you tried. But this is the market we're in, and I've seen sillier news. So, anyways, that news came out. We got some bullish price action intraday, and we decided to take this CBRL 919.65 call at 1.5. We stopped out maybe 10 minutes later, minus 25%, right? Now, the reason we stopped out here, again, this is a speculative play. So when it doesn't go your way, you just have to get out. I've been in plenty of news trades that if they don't work within the first like 5-10 minutes, they're not going to work 9 times out of 10, right? So the way to play this, and then Cracker Barrel actually gapped up on news the next day, and these contracts ran 113%, right? So upon reflection, I think the right thing to do with this trade was size a little bit less to a lotto size, meaning I don't care. My max risk is in the option. If I'm willing to lose $100, I'm only going to buy. Well, I'm not going to buy this. If I'm willing to lose $150, I would just buy one contract of this and I'll let it ride, right? And not take a stop loss. I think that was the better way to play this. Again, news plays, they have to be quick. They have to work right away. So, since it didn't work out, we got out pretty quick. So again, this is another trade I'm not going to lose sleep over. You shouldn't either. If you took a loss on this, it is very speculative, right? The next trade is one that impacted my mental game once we took this loss. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I'll explain here. So on Friday, last day of the week, we wanted to trade CAT. So the night before, Thursday night, CAT had some news saying they will probably not profit as much as they would in the past due to tariffs. Okay, that's like to sum up the sort of news, the overnight news. It gapped down Thursday night, in the 24-hour session, and then Friday morning, it was still gapping lower, and it was set to open around this 425 area. Okay, so on our watch list, this was one of our top trades, right? This is like number one, I think. CAT downside. If we see CAT under 420, this is a trigger to hit puts. Okay, so what ended up happening though, and what made it really hard to move on from this was the setup was so great, but the way the option premium moved was horrific. So what happened was we gapped down. We had this like small little pop and a wick, fell back under 425. We dropped under here. We were thinking of trading it, but we wanted to wait just a few more minutes, and we got that nice little pop back, not even quite to 425, and then we came back lower, and we decided to take the trade within those first 8 minutes within the open. So right around here, we took the CAT 410 put for September 5th at 2.1. Had a good start, good push forward or downwards, and I think these were like at 2.2, 2.3, something like that, 10%. And then we got this bounce, right? We got this bounce. We bounced back up to 421, came back lower, and then we started filling this candle up higher towards 425. The contracts, these are weekly contracts, 1 week out, but they traded like a 0 DTE. So we went from 2.1 to like 0.96, I think, at the low on these puts near 425, 426. And we stopped out 50% loss just about. And it was within, minutes, right? Like 6:38, we entered, 6:46, we were out. minus 50%. That was like almost shocking how negative the trade went instantaneously. And it was to the point where, I mean, you couldn't even scale out on this. Like, you just had to take the full loss to the chin, right at the lows, essentially. So, we took this loss. Cat ended up being just such a really good technical trade through 420 this time around. Dropped all the way down to 415, a little bit under, and then these cat puts went 55% from our entry over here, right? But first they went minus 55 or minus 50%. And so I'll just talk about the mentality here. I'd say I didn't get over this trade, and I'm pretty good at getting over trades. I didn't get over this trade until maybe like an hour. It took me like a solid hour, and I actually, ended up not being able to focus on the markets because of how rapid this trade was as far as a loss. And to add to it, it wasn't even a random sort of trade. This was a really good technical setup on news with volume, good price action. Everything was there. And to see it go against you that quick and then eventually come back, it's definitely heartbreaking. So, the way you deal with that essentially is you try your best to move on. But what a lot of traders will end up doing is, you take this loss and you're immediately thinking like, I'm livid. I'm angry. I'm going to go like tilt and try to find another trade. And, they'll trade SPX 0DTE, try to make like 20% on a 0DTE contract real fast to make up these losses on heavy size. And then that loss just turns into a cascading loss. And your day becomes way worse than, just taking this loss on cat 410 put, right? So there's a couple ways that you need to try to approach these sort of losses intraday, especially when the market's open and you can click buttons and, lose more money. Is you either walk away, you go for a walk outside, 15 minutes, just like cool off, come back to the market if you're feeling it. Otherwise, just take the rest of the day off. Or you have to have really thick skin and that sort of goldfish memory of, I'm just gonna forget about it, forget this completely happened, and I'm going to focus. And that kind of mentality takes a really long time to develop. It's still something I'm working on after 5 years of trading pretty actively. And it's just it's hard to deal with. But the one thing you want to avoid at all costs is getting back more than you needed to on the day, because then that just makes trading much more harder the next day and the next week, because you have to come back from this drawdown. And drawdowns are can sometimes take a really long time to recover. So I hope this was helpful. So we went over 3 trades here. 2 of them were more speculative, so it doesn't feel as bad to take a loss on them. This third one was definitely a hard one to deal with, especially because it's such a nice technical trade. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments. Hope everyone's having a good Labor Day weekend, and let's get ready for September. Hopefully some more volatility in the markets. All right. Talk to you guys later.